pleased for us to now jump from Taiwan to India, where we have Rohit Lalwani, our WDO community liaison in India, who will be sharing the next session with us. He engages with the local members and the community in India on WDO's behalf. He's also the Director of Industry Relations at MIT Group of Institutions and a podcaster and parallel entrepreneur. Welcome, Rohit, to our World Industrial Design Day event.
Thank you, Natalie, for the quick introduction. Hello, everyone from India. Wish us all, in fact, a very happy World Industrial Design Day. And today, let's talk diversity on enabling DEI culture in education and workplace. In fact, many companies and organizations miss the mark when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or worse, engage in performative activism. Our conversation now will explore the challenges and benefits of empowering DEI at workplace. And who better than talking about it with Tina Vinod? Tina Vinod is a feminist at heart with a strong belief that an inclusive organization culture brings about the best in teams and individuals. She drives the diversity and inclusion charter at ThoughtWorks globally with her team. This includes the diversity and inclusion strategy and focus to enhance their impact as a collective, both internally and externally. Her areas of focus include women in workplace, social inclusion, support and solidarity to the LGBTQI community, building a culture of inclusion and belonging. In addition to key programs under the D&I Charter, she has won numerous awards, including the Trailblazer Women in Diversity Award in 2019, presented by Women's Web, her Rising Award by Jobs for Her for rising as a woman leader in diversity and in inclusion in 2019, and various other awards. Welcome, Tina, to this conversation. It's an honor and pleasure to host you on this conference today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I do justice to the questions that you asked me today, Rohit.
Absolutely, Tina. Be quite sure of this. So let's start our conversation with a quick icebreaker. While talking about the culture, you bring the DEI focus at ThoughtWorks, and it's on your overall business. Could you talk a little bit about that?
ThoughtWorks is a 27-year-old company, and the reality is a lot of our culture and the foundation of who we are has been laid down years back by our founder. And over the years has evolved, right? It isn't, we're spread across 17 regions, and we can say that, okay, it's ThoughtWorks, culture. But there is uniqueness to its culture, even in the different regions that we are present in. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. ThoughtWorks' purpose is to create extraordinary impact on the world through our culture and technology excellence. And both social change and diversity, equity, and inclusion have been ingrained in our business for more than 20 years now. And I think influence our culture in a lot of ways, right? And there are the values that we have, that we share, that are integral part to who we are today. And I think, like I said, given our spread over 17 countries, 48 offices, we have people from all walks of life, different backgrounds, religion, nationalities, sexualities, skills, gender, and so much more. And I think we really work hard on building a safe space for all. And I have to be honest, this will continue and will always be an ongoing journey. It's not easy. A lot of times I think when we talk about ThoughtWorks culture and we talk about DEI in our workplaces, it seems like, oh my God, the organization has done so much in this space, but we know that we've just about scratched the surface and there's so much more to do here.
Well, I'm sure it's... Yes, Tina, please go ahead.
No, I think it's important for individuals to understand, and to be able to advocate for the right causes. And I think providing the space to do that. I mean, to be really frank, each one of us has an area that we care deeply about. As humans, innately, we are born to care, right? And so whether it is gender, whether it is some other underrepresented group, whether it is inequities we have personally experienced in our lived lives, right? There are areas that we care deeply about, and I think creating the platform to be able to explore, have safe conversations around these topics, and to be able to contribute is, I think, important and critical. And we strive to be able to provide that space in our organization.
Beautiful and well said. In fact, you know, what you just mentioned about DEI also brings me to my next question, that DEI is a challenging goal. I mean, while we talk about it subconsciously, many of us still miss the bus of being conscious about it. The question that I have for you is, how can we inculcate the attention to DEI as a part of our daily culture?
Like I said, it's always work in progress. It's a journey. And over the years, I think we've realized the impact that DEI has on our culture, people practices, inclusion, our employer brand, um, our stakeholders, our customers, and overall, right? Each of us as individuals in this world. And while it definitely is the right thing to do, and it also enhances our business outcomes, I think as a global consultancy, when we cater to a mix of clients from different sectors, domains, cultures, regions, we realize how this diversity and mix actually enables us to develop software and to consult with our clients in a more meaningful way that understands the complexity of the world that is around us. And I think a very holistic approach to this is very, very important. So it's, I think, when we talk about DEI and we talk about, it can't be just an employer brand exercise. Of course, that messaging is important because people will join you based on what they hear about you. So starting from employer brand, but interwoven into your recruitment practices, into your people practices, into what you're doing in your onboarding, into what you are, your staffing, practices, the way you work with your clients, how, accessible you are to your leadership is. What are the things that you emphasize on? What is critical for you? All of that becomes very, very important. I think over the years, we have grown, and have to be honest, right? We started by saying, women and underrepresented gender minorities is very, very critical and important as a goal for us as a business. And, over the years, we've strived to be 40% WUGM, which is women and underrepresented gender minorities in tech. And we realized that there is a huge gap in the tech industry when it comes to WUGM. And this has been a goal for us, but we can't really ignore the other aspects of the identities that people bring to the workplace. And so each of our regions have been asked to choose an area of focus that goes beyond this goal as well. So you would see, for example, India has chosen LGBTQ plus inclusion. And as we talk, we are running a program called Interning with Pride, where we are providing an internship, a free internship program for people from the LGBTQ plus community. And then, they can apply and join ThoughtWorks through our regular recruiting process. The reason why we are doing this is we realize that this is an underrepresented group, hugely marginalized, and being discriminated against. And unless we make these equitable, take these equitable steps, we will never be able to level the playing field for the community. In the same way, you would look at Germany, which has a focus on people, Black and people of color. And then there is North America that focuses on Black and Latinx people. And, there is Australia that's focusing on Indigenous Australians. So each region has another area of focus and priority over and above, the WUGM goal that we have. And there is all intermixed with affinity groups and the right people policies, the right programs. So designing DEI that really caters to multiple people and diverse people is very critical.
Wow, well said. In fact, while designing this talk and adding this for our audience, one of my conversations with the WDO team was that, hey, while we would be talking about diversity in design as an area, but it is important to engage with an expert in the field of diversity in terms of what are their thought process and how do we actually go out and inculcate diversity real time in our daily culture. And while we talk about daily culture, one of the important elements or an area that we usually miss out is education, a vital phase to build attitude and thought process. The question that I have for you, Tina, is how can the theme of DI be taught in education to create a positive attitude around it? I mean, if we catch them young and if we start inculcating these thoughts quite early on, it will go out and create a meaningful impact in the larger run. So what's your view on that?
It's very, very important. And, there was an article I was recently reading about, starting early in schools to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there was this particular, article that spoke about caste and caste oppression and why it needs to be introduced at the school level. And there was a debate internally. We had these chat groups, and caste is such a complex topic to be introduced in school was one of the arguments, right? And it's not complex at all. I mean, caste influences us in a country like India from the day literally we are born, right? From our names to the ceremonies to everything else that is associated, right? And many of us see how, for example, certain communities do certain work. If it is housework, you will, by default, many people fall under the Dalit community.
Why only India, Tina? Globally speaking, we see, these practices in the African continent, in the South American continent. So across the globe, we find these elements.
Yeah. Even frontline workers, right? Who are they? Who are the people who are in your restaurants? Who are the people who are cleaning your city, right? And these are the not underrepresented necessarily, but marginalized communities. And I think introducing at the school level is very, very important. I remember, talking to my daughter about LGBTQ plus inclusion, and she's 15. And she has actually contributed to an article that's published in a book on LGBTQ plus allyship and stories around that. And her story goes that I was I was in the car with my mother, and there was this man who was dressed like a woman who came and begged for money when we stopped at a traffic signal. And the reality is, and that's when I explained to her, but when she had written it, I was like, wow, this particular conversation has had an impact on this girl. Because I remember her asking me, why, Mama, is this man dressed like a woman? Right? Because this was a trans woman who had come. And the reality is the trans people are the ones most marginalized in the LGBTQ plus community in India, like many other regions as well. And the only source of income is sex work and begging for them. And when I explained to her, that's, these are the conversations that you need to have at home. So education doesn't necessarily need to start in school or colleges. It needs to start at home. It needs to start in what your media is telling you. It needs to start in your movies. But I do think that the influence that our educators have and their responsibility is far higher. And so that is very, very critical, right? And influence us is, in many ways. In fact, one of the things we do at ThoughtWorks is we do something called the social change interview round. And as part of this interview, we talk about some of these topics with all the people who are part of our recruiting process. And during campus recruiting, when we talk to people who we hire from grads that we hire, there are such interesting, meaningful conversations that we have when we have, these interviews. And so very unaware to us, we also realize how deep-rooted and internalized caste, homophobia, sexism, all of this is there, and exists deep within us. And we need to have these conversations to be able to question these systemic injustices and inequities that are there in our world.
Well said. And I think what I loved about, what you spoke right now is charity begins at home. Can we go out and inculcate all of this attitude, all of these thoughts, go out there and build these conversations with our own children and talk to them about, what's happening out there and how can we go out and support the marginalized communities out there. Beautiful example, said by you, Tina. And I hope all of us and all the participants here on the call, we are all able to inculcate that. And taking the cue from there to, the beautiful work that all of you keep doing at ThoughtWorks. I've been to ThoughtWorks multiple times. The way you design your offices, the culture, the entire design thinking process. And let me be honest, I think I've seen the most colorful post-its, at ThoughtWorks offices. So, talking about design element at ThoughtWorks, how can design thinking, in fact, intervene in existing workplaces with respect to DEI? What can be the first step for companies to encourage the same amongst the existing colleagues and bring about this change? And if you could share with us few examples from other companies, from ThoughtWorks, that would be useful to understand then how participants on this conference and listening to this right now can go out and use design thinking principles to bring along this change at their workplaces.
I've spoken about this before as well, but a few years back, and this is one such example that I cite, is Apple ignored 50% of the world's population in a comprehensive health tracking app, right? And in an article that I was reading, the author mentions that, and this was about, it failed to track the periods, the women's, monthly cycles. And then they sort of, corrected that, and they reintroduced the app in iOS 9. And it's an interesting story where they call it reproductive tracking, the reproductive period or the reproductive cycle. But tracking your monthly periods is beyond just tracking your reproductive cycle. There's more to it than just that. And that is one of the arguments that I often talk about, that, please think of it a little more holistically. But beyond that, right, in that article, what they also spoke about is the percentage of women engineers in Apple. This is, I'm talking quite a few years back. It's not a recent statistic. But the reality is that unless you are reflective of the diversity that exists in the world, it's very difficult to build products for the world that you serve. Right, and that is an important aspect. A more recent example, right, from India, and two thought workers have written a very beautiful article about this. So, for the vaccination drive that's happening, the government has commissioned an app and a website called CoWIN in India. And in a country that has a huge, significant digital divide, this necessarily isn't a very equitable idea, right? And in the last few months, I mean, even for people who are digitally competent and who understand English, because this app is available only in English as of now, it's still a struggle, right? There is the app isn't the best, but still it is something that we have at various points over the last.
While you mentioned that, Tina, by the way, India is the back end as far as information technology is concerned for the entire world. We're going out and building technology for all sorts of large companies globally, while you just mentioned that.
That's true. That's true. And at various points, right, in the last 3 months, booking slots on the app was mandatory, right, depending on the age group. And so, it's such a struggle, especially when there is information divide. You need to know English, and you need to have a smartphone or a laptop, and a fast internet connection. There's SMS authentication that's required for the app. You are literally not being inclusive, to close than 65% of the country. And that is the art of design, right? Like, how do you design inclusive products, right? And so I think these are some of the examples. But over the years, right from, and I've said this before, right from the air conditioning temperature, which is about 5 degrees too cold for women, everything in our workplaces have been designed keeping a certain reference. A lot of times white male reference in mind. A one size fits all approach can never work when it comes to design thinking. And I think for designers, for organizations to be able to build the right products, being reflective of the diverse user base is very, very important. And I think that is very, very critical as well.
Well said, Tina. In fact, completely could relate to how this works. But I have I have an important question out here. While you've been talking about this, marginalized community is a very broad definition. How can organizations, what is their charter and what they want to focus on? Isn't it very difficult to identify that? Because here we could talk about people with special abilities. Here we could be talking about the LGBTQI communities. Here we could be talking about people who come from certain social cultural strata of the society defined by the government. So how do we actually freeze upon which kind of community do we want to focus on?
And like I said, right, I mean, it's really broad. There is so much that needs to be done. That is a reality. And sometimes when organizations are beginning or starting on their DEI journey, when they're early on in their DEI journey, it is challenging to be able to focus on multiple areas at the same time, right? It requires investment, expertise, thought leadership, and much more. And one of the goals, and it differs, right, from organization to organization, but we've realized, being as spread as we are over 17 regions and 48 offices, and the diverse set of people that we have in each of these regions, that you should empower regions to also choose what is important and priority for them. And like I just spoke about some time back, there are multiple programs across ThoughtWorks that invest in supporting and building equity for underrepresented communities. A lot of this focus is on tech primarily, but we also partner with a lot of humanitarian organizations and support them in their endeavor as well. For example, we have a program in India called STEP. It's called the Software Technology Excellence Program. And the reason why this program was started was we realized that the brightest of tech talent does not necessarily have to come from the top colleges in India, engineering colleges in India. Many people and students in India cannot afford engineering, cannot afford the fancy fees that come with the engineering colleges. And so many of them opt for diploma courses. Now, these diploma courses doesn't necessarily always prepare you, for a career ahead in a technology company. And so what we've offered is a 2-year paid internship program for students, and then we hire them into ThoughtWorks, right? And in this way, by looking at the polytechnic diploma, students, we've really tried to level the playing field to some extent for students who really can't afford engineering and be part of some of the colleges that we do our regular campus hiring from. right? Similarly, we have a program. We've partnered with an organization called Plan International in China and kicked off a 3-year STEM education program for rural girls. And so, right, there are multiple of these programs that we have across the globe, and you know, we participate with other organizations as well, as part of initiatives that are there. Trust me, there's so much to do. Like I said, we've just about scratched the surface. This continues to be an ongoing effort, and we will make our mistakes and learn from them as well.
What I love, Tina, is the passion that all of you invest into defining this and how do you go about with it. I think that is one of the necessary ingredients to go out and make this successful. Taking cue from your career journey, you've also led marketing in past, and talking from the marketing angle, we see so many brands take part in performative activism. What do you think brands can do to bring diversity and inclusivity to the core of their businesses?
It's interesting because this was a conversation that we had in ThoughtWorks during Pride Month, and I will just cite an example there. But there is a large role organizations, brands, and individuals need to play to build an equitable world, and that goes beyond performative activism and performative allyship, right? Recently, we had decided that allyship would be the theme for Pride Month internally in ThoughtWorks, right? And then a couple of thought workers from the LGBTQIA community came back and said, why do we need to center around allies for the Pride Month? And there is so much of performative allyship that's out there, right? Where you have your rainbow colored logos and social media posts and pride parades. But how many organizations or individuals are really looking at bringing about systemic change, right, when it comes to LGBTQ plus inclusion in our workplaces, in our society? There are privileges that are inherently present, right, for cisgender heterosexual people. We need to acknowledge that. And we have a larger role to play in terms of leveling the playing field. And this is something that was questioned, and we changed our theme. But it is important to show solidarity and support to our marginalized communities. And by this, I mean that each one of us has a role to play in questioning systemic biases and inequities that have existed forever, right? And we need to have programs, we need to educate, we need to have conversations, we need to listen to the voice of dissent. And that is something I think is very, very important. I have seen brands, right? And all of us have seen brands where you have people of color as the face of a particular brand, or we have a trans person as the face of a particular brand in a particular ad. But how many of, when you go to their organizations, how many people do you actually see in their organizations? How many people do you see in their leadership teams? And I think that is important. And activism doesn't necessarily need to stay within your organization. It can be go out and supporting movements and communities outside as well. And I think that is what that intersection of social change and DEI brings.
Absolutely, well said. And that brings me to my last question, Tina, but we also have a few audience questions that I'll ask you soon. My last question, how can DEI influence larger cultural and systemic shifts within an organization?
I'll have to say that if you're starting late, it is an effort. And I always advise many DEI folks who are starting on that journey, or people who drive affinity groups who reach out, that please get expert help. There are many organizations who do provide support in building your DEI strategy. If you don't have that in-house, try and get that external help. And one of the things I have seen within the DEI community is a willingness to support each other and to share best practices. And I think that is important. But I think the critical part is DI being integrated into culture, strategic business plan, growth goals, and leaders play a critical role in helming DEI, driving the efforts and being role models and walking the talk. It's very, very important that leaders walk the talk, are brought into the DEI agenda. And then understanding and recognizing that people have multiple identities, right? Diversity dimensions, lived experiences that often define who we are. And it's not just, me by my gender or the region I come from, but much more than that, right? And that is also critical. Talking openly about these multiple identities can help clarify the ways in which a person can can simultaneously experience privilege and oppression at the same time, right? And intersectionality is very, very important, and acknowledging intersectionality is important. And combining this with several forms of discrimination, right, is also critical. And one of the things that we do in ThoughtWorks is encouraging people, if they want to, if they're willing to share their lived experiences. And I can tell you that this opens up such powerful conversations internally. We have programs like the Circle of Trust, where we create a safe space for people to come and share their lived experiences. We recently did one on the impact of the pandemic, and the impact it has on your mental health. Right, whether you have a history of mental health, or it is triggered off by a loss of a loved one, or the impact that the pandemic has. I think it's important to have these open conversations that encourages others to feel like, okay, I'm not the only one, but also saying that these stories are relevant to me and to my community at large.
Absolutely well said. I think these have been tough times for many of us, many communities out there who couldn't get access to, the basic requirements. And apart from that, the work from home element also brought along with it a lot of mental challenges. And I think going up there and having conversations around it is extremely important aspect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tina, for getting into this conversation. And before we sign this off, there are a few questions from our audience. So I'll kick start with asking those questions to you. The first one, on the point of free internships for the LGBTQ plus communities, wouldn't it be more impactful if it were paid internship? Do you feel free internships toy around the line of inclusivity, as a certain privileged group are the only ones who can access these opportunities?
It is a paid internship as well. Sorry, I did not mention that. And I have to, and I think just to elaborate, right? When I spoke about the STEP program, when I spoke about interning with Pride, please remember that we level the playing field only up to a certain extent. After that, they all go through the regular interview process that we have at ThoughtWorks. So in no way is this company, is this community undermined. So I think that is something that I think I forgot to call out.
In fact, in my observation, as I mentioned, having closely associated, not as someone who's worked with ThoughtWorks, but someone who's collaborated with ThoughtWorks in past, not only I'm sure that these are going to be paid internships, but apart from that, ThoughtWorks believes in providing healthy food, nutritious food to its employees. All of these elements are taken care of right from the smallest level of detailing in terms of in terms of making it comfortable for all employees. I remember visiting a ThoughtWorks office, and there are creche for toddlers. There is praying room for people who need to who need to go out and worship during the daytime. And that talks about how do you actually talk about inclusivity right at the design part of the entire element. So kudos to the organization and the team behind all of these initiatives and activities. The second question there, Tina, is how can conversation on inclusion influence policies across? Example, acknowledging a non-binary gender for official documents, equal education and job opportunities, etc.
I think policies play a critical role in building inclusion and also retention. Right, you spend a lot of effort in hiring the right people. Right, you invest a lot in training them, and then it's very critical for organizations to retain this talent. Right, because the war for talent, especially tech talent, is real. It is a challenge many technology companies are facing today. And so you're right, policies are very critical. In fact, a lot of policies that we ensure are gender neutral as much as possible. So we have a same-sex partner cover for the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm specifically talking about India because policies differ sometimes from region to region, but many of our regions have similar policies. So we have gender neutral adoption leave policy and surrogacy, policy as well. And there's gender affirmation and transition in the workplace policy, specifically to the question that you all have asked. And this policy covers everything right from support that the person will need, how to go about asking for leave, what is the break period that's being offered, what are some of the external organizations they can contact, what are some of the legal requirements that they will need to do in terms of name change, all of that, and plus what how can our organization support them through that journey. So that entire policy is pretty detailed out. Our anti prevention of sexual harassment in the workplace policy covers is gender neutral, there are multiple things like preferred name and pronoun in our HRMS and staffing tool. We have our EAP partners who provide who provide counseling support for our employees, but also our trained professionals who can support LGBTQ plus people as well. So we realize that a one size fits all does not work when it comes to policies as well. And so even if you may have a policy that's catered to me, I may still have something with my flexible work requirements. And I think one of the things that we do is to be able to cater to that even outside the realm of a policy.
Interesting. And the last question here, Tina, is beyond interventions that serve public at large, example DT for COVID vaccine drives, how can design thinking be leveraged to bring about a culture change?
Oh my God, everything, right? Like, for example, recently, with, and I don't know, I'm not a design thinking expert, but I'm just giving you all this example and you all can tell me whether it fits into this umbrella or not. But recently, we introduced something called the Inclusive Team Starter Kit. And the Inclusive Team Social Contract. I'm speaking about it at another event later this year. But what we realized is that when we suddenly went into the lockdown and the pandemic, many of us weren't prepared for the impact that it would have on our personal lives, right? Kids started studying from home. We had to prepare, everything was worked in the time frame of the pandemic, right? Whatever support that we had, daycare support, other support, house help support, everything that we had suddenly vanished. And so we had to continue working the way we did from home and be able to take care of our personal needs as well. And then we said, hey, this isn't necessarily working. So teams need to revisit some of the ways of working that they had before and see how they need to sort of customize it to the current situation. So we introduced the Inclusive Team Social Contract, and it is a very curated exercise that covers right from, your communication practices to how do you informally, connect with each other as a team, to, how do you work with your clients, to how do you work with, what are some of the barriers that you need to have, right? Where do you say no? Where do you stop? And so this exercise, we've used some tech tools like Mural to facilitate the exercise, but it was something that we have designed. I've spoken about it. It's available. I can share the link sometime. But yes, this was one of the ways that we said, hey, can we rethink our ways of working and design something that could that really reflects the current context as well. But there are a lot of other things, right? Like right from your affinity groups, right? How do we build engagement, right? How do we think differently? How do we engage with multiple communities? Accessibility is another important aspect, right? Especially for the disability community. So design thinking, I think, intersects with so many aspects of our lives, whether it is work lives or personal lives. And I think the community has a very, very large role to play in building, driving equity and inclusion.
Absolutely. Well said, Tina. This was an amazing conversation with you, very insightful. The beautiful aspect about our conversation was that there are so many actionable items that we could go out and immediately apply at our workplaces to be more diverse, to be more inclusive, and bring in a focus of DEI at our workplaces. Thank you so much, Tina, for doing this conversation with us. It was a pleasure and honor to host you on the conference today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And I hope I did justice to the questions that you'll have, asked me today. And I hope to collaborate further with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.